Welcome, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time, and I want to thank you for coming in together to join us in this important webinar. And I think we'll give it just another 30 seconds to allow everyone to log on. I see a number of attendees logging on right now, so we'll give this about 30 minutes, and then we'll kick off, or 30 seconds, and we'll kick off. All right, I think we'll get going. And again, thank you, welcome, appreciate the time and effort you're all putting into the preparation work and sharing ideas and comments, and especially spending the time now to help share your ideas, to help us listen and help us take action together to address the systematic racism and inequalities that exist across our scientific community. My name is Nick Gazer. I'm the CEO for Agronomy, Crop Science, and Soil Science Societies. And we'll have a welcome and a brief structure overview at the beginning of this webinar. And the intent here is to really listen to you. We know that there continue to be many inequalities that exist across our societies, and we need to double down, triple down, quadruple down our efforts to address these. As I'm relatively new in this position, coming up on 7 months since I've joined as CEO for the organization, I've seen a lot of great things, but a lot of inequalities that still exist, and a need for review in terms of our systematic processes, and this extends across the broader set of societies. This is on the organizational development side. This is on leadership, how we welcome and encourage and provide advocacy efforts to welcome people in, provide resources across many different areas. This is professional development, mentoring, advocacy, accountability for us in power to help enable change and invest in this space in a way that maybe we haven't done it, or that we really haven't done in the past. So with this, again, thank you for coming in, and I really look forward to hearing your thoughts, your comments, as candid as they can be, to help us address these issues and hold us accountable going forward. For the structure of this town hall today, we will have welcome, few opening statements from our presidents, as Ole, Sylvie, and Sean are sharing their webcams right now. We will have brief comments from a number of leaders across the agronomy, crop science, and soil science societies that lead up the specialty groups and our diversity committee, our recognition and representation task force, and others that way. And then we're dedicating the vast majority of the time from about 12:15 to the end of the webinar today, or town hall today, to listening to you. We really want you to provide your thoughts and comments and questions again to us, and help hold us accountable to where we can go. This is only one point in time. This is only one event, and we will certainly need to invest heavily to take the actions that you're recommending to us. For your questions and comments coming in, please use the question box within your GoToMeeting taskbar. We'll be monitoring that. We'll be using that quite a lot throughout the question and answer period. So with that, first I'll welcome in and just provide a welcome to our presidents again, and then just as a quick introduction, we'll then transition over to the leaders of our current groups. So in addition to the presidents we have today, we have Hiro Galani, and we have Samira Darub, we have Aaron Day, we have Dana Ashford, and Kara Peterson joining us today to represent many of the specialty groups and committees that we have focused on not only anti-racism, but other broader diversity and inclusion and equality across the societies. So with that, I would welcome Ole, if you have some introductory comments, then we can transition to Sylvie and to Sean before we transition to Hiro.
Thank you, Nick. Welcome, everybody. I'm Ole Wendroth. I'm from the University of Kentucky, and I'm this year the president of the Soil Science Society. So I'd like to briefly mention that diversity is firm part of the values that we have as a society. So it says diversity, equity, and inclusion of people and perspectives. Based on these values, we have recently met across the 3 societies, and each society we developed our strategic plan. And as one of our top strategies in Soil Science Society of America, we have diversity and inclusiveness. Promote a climate of diversity and inclusiveness across SSSA to enhance the creativity, innovation, and impact of soil science. So we have a lot of things going on, and I just want to mention one example. We have our representation and recognition task force, and the representatives of that initiative are here today with us. I'd like to also mention one example that we have been doing in our society since 2010. We have the Gateway Scholars Program. Since that time, we invite for our annual meeting, we invite participants from local high schools, from minority communities, from indigenous communities to participate with this. So my time is over. I'd like to learn today from you what your questions are and what your ideas are, so that we can transfer our plans into real action items. We need, in order to do that, we need you. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. My name is Sylvie Bruder, and I am the current president of the American Society of Agronomy, and I'm a professor at Purdue University. And to me, it is it's personally important that we are here today. I think as a nation, many of us find us at a point of personal reflection in terms of how we think and view our fellow humans in this country, our citizens, our co-citizens in the US. And it's also a time of, as I'm sure everybody is aware from a vast number of emails, of institutional reflection. And so here we are as an institution. This is an institution that I've been a member of since 1987. Sometimes I'm shocked by the number of years, but that is in fact how long I have been involved with the Tri-Societies. And I can tell you I am keenly aware that there have been and continue to be everything from gross demonstrations of bias to microaggressions. It's not that people are individually bad or that we're collectively bad. It's that we're humans, I suppose, but we also need to find a way to institutionally do a better job. And so I am optimistic that at this point we are at a time when we will actually find substantive ways to move our society forward in terms of equity and diversity and inclusiveness in ways that we have discussed in the past but haven't really operationalized. So I am optimistic, I am excited to be here, and I'm excited to hear your ideas because grassroots works better than top-down.
Hello, I'm Sean Kepler, President of the Crop Science Society of America. Thank you all for joining today. The science that our societies represent is really of global importance, and take things like food security and food production. It affects people of all nationalities and races and economic status. It's an example of the importance of the work that's represented, and there's so many opportunities within the types of research that we do that are important nationally and globally as well. And I was encouraged that as we went through the long-range planning process over the last year, that there was a very strong emphasis that was put on being able to identify barriers that preclude people from reaching their full potential for whatever reasons. and to promoting career development and diversity within our societies. And so it was very timely, I think, that those discussions have been going on for a long time and are brought at the conclusion of our long-range planning to to a point where we are today that we can listen to your ideas and have these very important discussions. Just reiterate what the Sylvie and Oli said, that this is absolutely important and critical to all of us and is really a major goal as we move forward. So thank you for tuning in today.
Thank you all. And just as a reminder, for your questions, your comments, your thoughts, please do submit those into the questions box within the GoToWebinar taskbar. And with this, we'll transition to representatives from across Agronomy, Crop Science, and Soil Science Society. And first will be Hiro Golani.
Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Hiro Golani, currently serving as the chair of Diversity in Agronomy, Crops, Soils, and Environmental Science Committee, and a member of the Triple SA RNR task force. The function of the committees, our committee, are to promote status of minority in the three societies, establish networks of minorities in the ag and environmental sciences, sponsor meetings to address issues of special concerns to minority, and foster the informal exchange of information and contacts in support of professional activities of minorities. In the previous year, the committee sponsored a high school symposium and graduate student poster competition at the Tri-Society meetings. Currently, I am responding to members and non-members of society's email and conveying their concern to the Tri-Society's headquarters. Sponsoring this webinar to address the current events and special concern of our members, organize a special session for our virtual annual meeting entitled Diversity in Our Science, Stories of Success and Strategies for the Future. We have lined up 5 panelists with the diverse background. I hope many of you get engaged in the discussion at the virtual luncheon. We will have a diversity poster competition. Let me know if you are interested in serving as a judge. Additional goals are to reach out to minors and bring in students from underserved communities and visit K-12 schools. Foster open line communication between the committee and the various self-identified diversity group at the meetings, and start discussion on Tri-Society minority scholarship and mentorship program. We look forward to your input and participation on the discussion board. Thanks.
Thank you, Hiro. The proportion of women in soil science and the number of women who are active and student members in SSSA and the other societies have steadily increased in recent years. 42% of our graduate members in SSSA are women, yet there is a high attrition rate among student members and a lower, about 23%, who actually transition into active membership. In addition, women in SSSA earn few awards, fewer recognition in the society, except for fellow awards. The SSSA Representation and Recognition Task Force was formed and approved by the Board of Directors in 2018 to evaluate the gender distribution in SSSA, representation in leadership positions, and earning awards. And there is a similar task force for ASA. The charge was to evaluate ways to increase and enhance retention from graduate to active members, representation of women in leadership positions, board of directors, division chairs, etc., and also the recognition of women in and by SSSA through various awards. The task force is comprised of both men and women covering a range of disciplines, government, university, industry, and consulting, and career stages from students, early career, and professional. The task force was headed by Andrew Sharpley and Rita Abighanim when it started, and now Erin and I currently are co-chairs since April. Erin?
Thank you, Samira. So some of the following, some of the progress and steps of the task force that we've taken. First, we've completed an intensive data analysis on the representation and recognition of women in SSSA. Headquarters is establishing a webpage where those statistics will be posted yearly to inform members, along with links to the reports and actions that the society is taking. I also encourage everyone to take a look at the discussion board that was initiated for this town hall. You will find the report that was presented to the SSSA board of directors. In there, some of the following recommendations that we provided and being implemented through the strategic planning are as follows. First, we recommended prioritizing efforts to sustain the positive trend in women representation while specifically targeting to stem the attrition of student members. Efforts should be aimed to increase women in leadership and governance positions to solidify their affiliation. Increase mentoring programs at all levels, but especially for students and early career members. We view improving involvement at the division level as a key step in stemming this attrition. Also, SSSA should not only prioritize creating diversity in membership, but creating a climate of inclusion and participation by all throughout each level of society activities. The low representation of women in leadership positions and recipients of awards are not due to credentials or eligibility, but due to low nomination rates. The task force recommends taking action to widen the awareness and importance of awards, encouraging nominations by and for women, and streamlining and removing barriers that may limit the nomination of women. Lastly, the task force requested and were approved for a time extension to now extend beyond gender and into other aspects of diversity and inclusion. Identifying data, performing analyses, and formulating recommendations for the SSSA board will begin in the second half of 2020 through 2021.
Hi, I am Dana Ashford-Kornberger, and I'm here today representing the Women in Science Committee. And our committee is focused on supporting women scientists in effective leadership and achieving professional excellence. We recognize the contributions of women scientists and strive to establish networks across the societies. And we support the continued strength and growth of women within our sciences. We have several different activities throughout the year. Mainly at the annual meetings, we have a workshop each year that's on a topic that's relevant to our society members. This year will be focused on emotional intelligence, which is valuable both in our professional and personal lives. After the workshop, or sometimes in conjunction with the workshop, we also hold a networking reception. And these are a great way to come and expand your network, meet new people. Some people have even met future mentors at these events. It's just a really good way to meet others during the society meetings. We also give a mentoring award each year to an individual whose efforts have encouraged women and/or girls in the sciences. We submit monthly articles to the CSA News. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to see those at some point. I think they've been going since 2017. And these are usually short articles with advice and information that's useful to everyone, not just women in the societies. And last but not least, we started a pilot caregiver travel award last year. And these are $500 grants, which are used towards annual meeting related caregiver expenses. It's meant to remove some of those barriers for people that are caregivers and also want to be able to attend the meetings. So hopefully I'll see some of you at upcoming workshops, and thank you for the opportunity to participate today in the town hall. And with that, Kara.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kara Peterson. I'm a graduate student at the University of Maryland, College Park, and a cisgender career woman. My pronouns are she and her. So our group is fairly new. We formed in 2017, and we more formally coalesced at the 2019 annual meeting in San Antonio. And our goal is to bring members together both at the annual societies meetings and also throughout the year to build community and provide resources on navigating our professional careers as LGBTQ+ scientists. And at past annual meetings, we've had a formal group meeting at the conference to discuss our goals and organizational structure, followed by an informal dinner just to get to know each other. This coming year for the 2020 annual meeting, we are planning a special session panel event called Seeds of Change, Fostering an Environment of LGBTQ+ Inclusivity in Agronomy, Crop, and Soil Sciences. And for that event, we're actually bringing in 4 guest panelists that have a breadth of experience at the crossroads of gender, sexuality, and agriculture, as well as gender studies and rural studies and social studies. Throughout the rest of the year, my co-chair and the group's primary founder, Christopher Ryan, he sends out these fantastic regular bi-weekly newsletters about a theme that affects or intersects in some way with the wider LGBTQ+ community. We've also been involved in a coalition of groups that are similar to ours that's called the LGBTQ+ in Scientific Societies, where we share strategies for increasing visibility and support for LGBTQ+ professionals in our fields. If you're interested in joining our group or learning more, I'll type out, we have a dedicated discussion board, so I'll just type out the name of our group so you can find us, and I'll also type out my email so you can get in touch. And we're definitely welcome to anyone coming to join our events.
All right, thank you all. I really appreciate those updates and raising awareness of the issue of the initiatives we do have in place. That being said, there are no pats on the back. We have a long ways to go, and I see a number of questions and comments coming in. Please continue to bring those in. Continue to send your ideas and your comments in. Help raise awareness of issues you've run into that are starting to come in as well. And we'll work through these comments and questions as we work through the remainder of the town hall. I would also note that the questions will be posted afterwards. So we have a limited amount of time today, but this is only one event, one initiative. So going forward, we will post the questions and we'll have active work on the discussion boards to continue this work going forward and to increase our transparency into where we stand, any progress being made, and also the specific actions we're taking with your guidance and your leadership along the way. So the first question coming in, Aaron, this one is going to be directed for you. If you can turn on your webcam quick. And the question is, what training does a society provide members and people in leadership roles on the issues of gender and racial bias? If none, then what do you envision as possible trainings?
So my answer to that one is, I think we have few to no actual trainings on these issues. There may be some CEUs available and some committees that hold panel discussions on these topics at the annual meetings. However, I don't think we have any in-depth training or series of trainings. I do think that we could hold in-person trainings at the annual meetings, perhaps on 2 aspects particularly. First, to contract professional trainers to come and hold sessions focused on educating attendees about the history of women and Black, Indigenous, and people of color in agriculture, science, and in general with America, while showing how this has resulted in systematic biases and barriers. And then 2, I think we can also contract professional trainers and experienced members to come in and help educate attendees on the daily experiences that women and people of color and LGBTQ plus endure via these microaggressions with a focus on steps to identify and intervene in daily microaggressions. So I think training on both of these scopes is needed to make a meaningful progress going forward, because it's capturing items that it provides context, historical context to the issues, but then it also helps us see and visualize how those manifest into everyday interactions that to many of us may not be apparent that they are harmful in some way.
Thank you, Aaron. Moving to the next question, and maybe this is also for Aaron, Samira, and maybe Hiro, and I'll make a couple comments on it also, and welcome any comments from the president. The comment is, it's nice to see efforts of including women and LGBT members. What is being done to include Black and Native members, and why are there no Black or Native members on this panel? And I would say, from my perspective, as a member of 15 years and a new CEO here coming into Access, so this is an area where we're failing. There's no way around it. We are absolutely failing in this way. We've taken steps, but this is where we need to do better. And it's, even to this panel today, highlighting the lack of representation of Black or Native members in positions of leadership and power across the societies. This is another example of where we're failing and where we can do better, and we need to do better going forward. So I'll just make that quick comment, but would also turn it over to Samira, Aaron, and maybe Hiro as well.
I can say a few things, and thank you for that question. I think it's all of our responsibilities to work on these issues of diversity, inclusion, and equity. I don't want to put the burden just on our people of color, you know, and we have a lot of Black members, but definitely not enough, and we have a lot of minorities, but definitely not enough. I think it's up to us to change the structure. It's really the institutional structure to have not just the diversity that we might have in certain disciplines, but also the inclusion. And I think mentoring at all levels will be something that we need to encourage and have in the society to fit everybody to feel safe and included and participate in the different levels of the society. But I don't want to put the burden, and I think we did this a little bit on purpose, the burden on our, you know, Black members. I think it's all of our responsibility to be able to do that.
I concur with Samira completely there. And one of the things I'd like to point out in the discussion board, one of the items that was posted was demographics of our society. And if you look in that, you can see membership type and ethnicity in there. Native American and Alaska Native is 0.1% of our society. Black and African American is 1.3% of our society. It is tremendously low. And so the panel here reflects that. And something that I think is important to echo that Samira was pointing out is that, you know, it's up to us to help find solutions and bring diversity into the society to do a better job to our members and colleagues of color, and to recognize that the low percentage of members also means that they probably end up on a lot of committees as adding the diversity to that committee. So the service loads of minorities is innately higher, and there's a lot of invisible labor that comes along with being perhaps the only one in your group. And so it's up to us. It's not their fault that these issues are here. It is the fault of a systematic development over time. And it is all of our responsibility to help bring in just not diversity to it, but to make sure that they're included so they want to stay here. That's incredibly important.
Thank you, Samira, and everyone. I concur with everyone what you say. And this year, I did reach out for our diversity special session for our luncheon. We have 2 panelists, Black. One is from Indigenous People Tribe of Arizona, and another one from our special the minorities, and also we are trying to reach out to K-12 school. I think we need to also communicate our science to schools. So maybe we will start visiting schools, and that way they see that see us as minority, they could fit in, and that way we could improve our presence and in the school, I think, and communication between us and minority school will be very important. And I think I would be very happy to connect anyone who wants to help out and reach out. I need to have volunteers. Thank you.
I would also, before we move to the next question, and I would welcome in any of the presidents, if you have a comment here as well, a quick offering. We are taking a systematic look at all of our policies, all of our processes that we have in place, especially across leadership, as to how we be much more inclusive, break down systematic barriers that many of us may not be aware of exist, especially if we've lived a privileged life and don't necessarily and aren't aware of the issues because of the privilege we've experienced in life. So that is happening. We aren't going to do that only internally. We're looking to bring in some external support to help us in that systematic review as well. And this is top to bottom. That this isn't going to be a light undertaking by any means, but our policies and process need to be evaluated for many reasons. And I would offer that as well. But if I could maybe ask Sean, Sylvie, or Ola if you have any additional comments before we move to the next question.
I can just make one quick comment. I mean, the societies reflect the institutions that the members come from. And so I think we also need to all personally keep working on our institutions in terms of the people that are hiring and the students that are brought in there as well. And that will also begin to reflect the membership in the society. But yeah, clearly we have a lot of room for improvement here.
I just add that we are actually, from many different angles, we are in an interesting time in science. And I think one of the things that will be a natural outcome of some of the things that are happening that don't have anything necessarily directly to do with our issues, well, with directly addressing perhaps, or seemingly nothing to do, inequalities, etc. But we, with the changes in how publications may work, with open access, with open science, we will hopefully democratize access to science. And our science in our societies has not been particularly democratized. We know that there are entities that would like to participate. In some cases, we alter fee structures if the cost is a barrier. But we really have not had a democratic access to the science. And I think doing so will create a pathway, not necessarily get it done, but it will create a pathway to bring in a more diverse membership than has felt enabled to participate to date.
Thank you all for those comments, and thank you for everyone on the webinar providing your questions and your comments as well. This is amazing to see the number of questions coming in. and it highlights the work we need to do and the reliance on you all to hold us, to provide thoughts and ideas and perspectives, and also to hold us accountable. To the next question, and this is specifically pointed towards the annual meeting. So I'd welcome again Sylvie, Ole, and Sean to jump in with this one, and I can provide some comments as well. Could the annual meeting have a designated session for racial and ethnic minorities to convene any interest in a specialty group? So any thoughts or comments there, specifically targeted towards our annual meeting, which just went virtual? So hopefully that can open some doors as well. But to Sylvie, Ole, or Sean, would you have any thoughts or comments there?
I think it's a good idea. It seems like a good suggestion.
So we, typically we reflect what our members want in terms of programming, and perhaps we need to be more proactive in initiating programming and saying we will have this, and make that kind of content available. I'd like to turn it over to some of the groups that have also been trying to host, every half-day sessions. I've attended a few on some of these issues. I think we can certainly make sure that there is a greater awareness. We also have more flexibility this year with the virtual meeting, in that we will be making available a lot more content, both online, I think in real time, but then also asynchronously, giving people an opportunity that can't decide where they need to be at one point in time to be able to go back and catch things that they had missed. And in some cases, I would hope that would allow them to prioritize attending in real time diversity and inclusivity sessions. They can catch up on their domain time session in asynchronous time later on.
So for having a special session with a group, with presentations from and about a minority group, I think it is with all new scientific topics. It needs an initiator or a small group of initiators. The broad mass will certainly not come up with the idea. So small group initiating it, I think that's a good step forward. And with this first time virtual meeting, I think we have a great chance of and a great flexibility of still incorporating that in some way in the program. Who is really liking the in-person meeting, of course, most of us do. When I learned about, or when I was in the discussions involved and decided finally also that we need to do this as a virtual meeting, I also thought about opportunities. So there's a lot of scientists around the globe who are occluded from our regular annual meetings for language barriers and for many other reasons, for shortness in traveling. So I see a great opportunity that they can participate in our meeting, and that way we learn about good scientific work that is done in other parts of the world, and we can engage with them, and maybe many of us can help colleagues from other parts of the world who are not first English native speakers, but whose first language is a different one, and we may help them in sharing their science by help to edit their writing or even their speaking. So that is my idea from here. Thank you.
So certainly we can do a lot there, and as mentioned, the flexibility in the virtual meeting offers us much greater reach and potential there to bring people in. Year over year, though, outside of just this year with the virtual meeting, this is an area that requires not only emphasis and resourcing from staff at headquarters, but also investments to help support the financial means for individuals to be represented in person, where they may have limitations financially, not just from academic institutions, but from a whole host of different areas and sectors that they might represent. And that's financial investment also to carry on the events and help people to come in, host the workshops, the sessions, while in an in-person meeting as well. So would definitely appreciate that comment and question. And I'm looking at Susan, if you could help me in some the number of questions coming in are great. Susan,
Nick,
if you could
we
help
lost
me.
your audio.
Oh, I'm sorry for that.
I can hear you fine.
Great. Can you hear me? This is Susan.
Yes, we can hear you, Susan.
Great. Okay. Yeah, we do have a couple of questions that and comments that have come in together that focus more on what can the societies do to help with the broader science. So let me pull those together for the group. One is, hey everyone, Rebecca Champagne here, incoming ASA graduate student board rep. Rebecca said she's noticed microaggressions towards graduate students of color during my time in graduate school. I think it's very important for everyone to not be afraid to call this out, whether that microaggression is coming from another student or even a PI or professor. We need to make sure everyone feels welcome in our labs and during their early career development. And then along that line, please give me a second here to get through all of the questions. Sorry. So many. Here, Anderson asks, are there mechanisms to regularly assess the workplace climate of the tri-societies? Could we use such an assessment to name and address potential hostile spaces and to improve recruitment and retention of BIPOC folks? Nick, you're on mute.
Susan, can you hear? Is my audio better now? I know it was.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So both of those questions, I think they're great, and they also go along the lines of another question that was raised about systematic training. And I think we need to do much better on assessing performance along the way, and requiring training for our leaders throughout the society, not just at the board level, but throughout our multiple levels of governance as well. And going forward, we do have an orientation scheduled with incoming board members as a small step, and this suggestion to go farther, increase that reach is a great suggestion, and one that we can definitely follow up upon to take a more systematic look at not only the headquarters staff and any microaggression that might be there, but also what exists across our membership base, and ensuring we take not only take a zero tolerance stance, but work proactively to address these issues that currently exist. Samira, do you have a comment on this as well?
Yeah. So I want to go back to this issue of microaggressions. I think a lot of women, but a lot of us feel that on a daily basis. And I agree with the participant who said we must speak out. And I go back to the mentoring that we have at the society. Some divisions have some mentoring that we take in a lot of graduate students and just go through the steps of being leaders eventually in the society. But also we do have the e-mentoring program that I think is an excellent way to be able to talk to a mentor about these issues if you're not comfortable to talking to other people about these issues. But it's incumbent upon all of us to have a safe place. If you don't feel comfortable, people need to speak up. And I can tell you from a personal experience, I didn't even realize these microaggressions when I started my career. I mean, not necessarily at the society, but in the workplace. And now we are more sensitive to them, and they chip at you. They really affect you personally and professionally. So speak up, talk to a mentor, talk to a leader in the society, talk to your groups. We need to always hear from you to be able for everyone to be safe. And it's just not the microaggressions, but all sorts of harassment that we may face. And as women, as people of color, we all have to speak up. Thank you.
Are there any additional thoughts or comments from any of the other panelists? Aaron, feel free to go ahead.
Yes, I just want to follow up on what Samira was saying there, and some of the comments earlier, where if you, for anyone in the town hall right now that hasn't looked up anything about microaggressions, take a few minutes to do so. A little bit of searching will get you a long ways started on it, to just what is a microaggression, what are examples of it, and how you can help self-identify your own microaggressions that you make to other folks without even knowing about it, and what you can do to intervene on yourself, but then also how you can intervene in the society, live in person, in the workplace, or at a society event. And coming from the perspective of a white male, I can say that if you wait until you're comfortable to start intervening, you'll never intervene. It's not a comfortable item, and it will never be a comfortable item. So don't wait until you're comfortable. Just self-educate some, go to what trainings you can that's available, and start participating in this to make a more inclusive workspace for it. And I think, lastly, going back to a comment Sean made earlier, a lot of our representation and our habits in the society reflect the institutes that we work at and where we come from. And I think, and I really want these societies to be an example of how people can interact and create an inclusive community that then we can have an impact in our other institutions where we work at. That way we can have a much broader impact on the scientific community well beyond what our societies are themselves.
Thank you, Aaron. Any additional thoughts or comments from any of the other panelists? All right, Susan, I can turn it back to you for maybe the next question or kind of grouping of questions coming in.
Okay, great. One question that has been asked is, what is the state of current outreach to undergraduate students at HBCUs and minority serving institutions? This seems like a great untapped route towards diversifying our sciences.
That was highlighted during the strategic planning sessions that we worked with the boards. That's a great. I also agree that's a great area to explore to follow up upon. That was highlighted during the strategic planning sessions as specific actions we could take in conjunction with the diversity, equality, inclusion strategies and objectives that were identified across each of the individual societies. But Sylvia, I see you turned your webcam on, and gladly turn it over to you as well.
I was just going to add that, yes, clearly this is an untapped opportunity. And, we've been talking about our home institutions as well. And I will say that we've been raising that issue here with our home institutions about how we don't necessarily follow up, but we give lip service to the notion of partnering with various sister institutions, but don't really invest in it. And I think this is clearly a case where there's an opportunity, and there's an opportunity that requires resources, but we do have resources to invest. I mean, the societies do have resources. It'll be a little bit of a painful year perhaps this year, we don't know, but we can certainly invest in not just the students, but also the interests of the faculty at those institutions. And to the extent that they, in many cases, do not have sufficient resources to attend our meetings, that's clearly a barrier. That is not a big problem to figure out what we can do proactively about that.
Thank you, Sylvia. That is a good point on investments. Financially, we, as a set of societies, are very secure and have the resources to make systematic investments in this space. Very specific actions need resourcing to become reality. And we're very fortunate in that position. Finances have been stewarded well over the last 100 years across the three societies, puts us in a position to take this action. Samira, go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say this year is a perfect example where we can do most of this outreach to start with, because we will have a virtual meeting and there's less expenses for a lot of people to attend because it's just the registration. So I think the trust societies will need to start from now, basically to reach out to certain institutions, the Manners chapters, historically Black community colleges, to be able to invite them to either attend some sessions, participate in sessions, the training. I think this should be, and hopefully it will be, an active item that we do with this meeting. It's not late because we just shifted to a virtual meeting, and I think a lot of people would be happy to participate.
Thank you, Samira. Aaron, do you have another comment?
Yeah, I wanted to just add the comment that I think it's a great idea, and I think that it needs follow-up to it with dealing with attrition of our students, members that we have. Typically, the first year that a student moves out of that student, they basically graduate, we lose we have 50% attrition of students on the first year, and that's equal among genders on them. And if you expand that out to about 4 years post-degree, then the attrition, it's now down to about 12% retention of those students. Our most diverse pool of members is our students. And it's also the pool that we lose most of the membership from, at least transferring from student membership into active membership. And so along with reaching out to new institutes and communities, we need to do everything that we can within to help stem attrition rates of our next generation of leaders.
Thank you, Aaron. Susan, is there another comment or question that we can highlight?
There are. Please give me 1 second here. This question, can the trust societies have people at the conferences available to intervene following microaggressions and blatant sexism, racism, etc.? As a white woman, I experienced a great deal of sexism at the meeting in San Antonio, but do not feel like it was my personal responsibility to educate the perpetrators why what they were doing was offensive. And in some cases, I felt it would potentially impact my opportunities in the future. Being able to have a mediator through the societies would help make those situations safer to engage in, especially for BIPOC members.
That is a great point, and I can welcome in the presidents from their perspective, and also maybe Samira and Aaron as well. We've had some conversations on this exact topic, and there is absolutely more we can do. First, with training headquarters staff, we have had some trainings historically with headquarters staff, but using at least the staff representatives as trained mediators in this context could be helpful. But also extending out to our broader membership base and providing more systematic training and a presence there, a welcoming presence to ensure people feel comfortable in sharing, or to the best of their ability, feel comfortable in sharing and reaching out. I know that's incredibly difficult, especially if you've been the recipient of the microaggression or other systematic bias or racist comments or sexist actions. I know it can be very difficult to reach out, but we can certainly do better when hosting the in-person meetings from that perspective. From Ole, Sean, or Sylvie, would you have additional thoughts, or Samira as well?
Yeah, I'd like to add that this was during recent meetings we tried to establish that. So at the opening ceremony, there was an announcement made who participating members could approach and report to in case of any of these aggressions. So, but you are right. We have to do and we can do a lot better, even in the preparation for a meeting. And we have also. I don't remember if it was just before the last meeting or also previous meetings. So prior to the last meeting in San Antonio, we had an ethic code of conduct that every member who registered had to check. So a statement that everybody had to sign on. So I think those are definitely the right initiations of doing that thing, but we need to do more. Thank you.
So let me just add that how we have not done to date a particularly good job or a good job at all at making it clear if you are if you experience an incident, if you experience consistent incidents multiple times, where you go or what you do and what will happen. And that is on us to make sure that it is an obvious process to anybody who unfortunately finds themselves in the situation. So it's easy to say, if you see something, say something, which is essentially what I got to do last year at the opening session of the meetings. But it is, as already been said, it's tremendously difficult to follow through. And so there are key aspects that we know. Not only does the process has to be clear, but the people who who are tagged with the responsibility of mediating, etc., need to be people who are themselves deemed to be approachable, you know, having the right attributes of combination of familiarity, confidentiality, etc., that people will feel comfortable approaching that individual, because they may not know them very well, but they have to know who they are, what they look like, and have to have some sense that this will go okay for them. And I'll just leave it at that. I see Heroes on, so maybe she wants to add, and Samira as well. But we have not to date had a clear, and I can say this as someone who has attended the meetings for years and years, if you would ask me what I was supposed to do, I would just sigh and say, well, you know, I learned to suck it up.
Well, thank you. I think we had some discussion last year, and I think we need to do more. Most of us are not comfortable with discussing this topic, but we have to make sure we, as a society, we need to have a designated person to go during the meeting so that we could resolve issues. Also, there was a suggestion during one of our discussion that when we pick up our tags, if there is a kind of some video in the beginning when we do when we are in line, we could do some education to the people during the lining up for picking up our registration and tags. Thank you, and appreciate your concern, whoever was. Thank you.
And I know we're reaching the top of the hour and many may need to drop off. Susan, I think we could probably take one more question before we do need to drop off. And before we take that last question, clearly from from the number of comments, from the participation, from the questions that have come in, there's a need to do much more. That's very evident. And clearly, there's also a need to open additional means for communication, for sharing your ideas, sharing your comments and questions. This is only one event. So before we go into the last question, just wanted to mention this is only one event. We are looking to hold continued conversations and discussion boards, additional town halls. We'll have our action plans associated with the strategic plan as well, and then specialty initiatives to address the systematic issues or the systemic issues across the societies going forward. So with that, Susan, maybe if there's one more question we could take, and then I know a number of people will have to, especially panelists, will have to drop off.
Yes, absolutely. So this is actually, we've had several questions and comments around this. I'll just start with this one. Being a Black person with a diverse background, I've tried without success to serve on the society board. Blacks and colored people need to be included in the tribe societies. We want to contribute to the society. And there's been several other comments around how do we get involved, and also a comment on where somebody who would like to provide some input, perhaps in a safer space, could do that. So Nick, I'll turn that over to you.
Certainly from the input side in a safer space, hopefully you can feel safe and comfortable in reaching out to us as staff members at headquarters. We're here to listen. We're certainly going to make mistakes along the way, but we're here to listen and learn and take action. That's a key point of consideration. To the issues of getting involved, or to the questions or comments about getting involved, this is, I'd mentioned earlier, the need to look at our policies and procedures across all levels of leadership and participation within the societies. I noticed this especially within our nomination process, and seeing some potential issues there as well, in terms of welcoming and inclusion and recognition for vast perspectives coming in that we are working to address internally. But this won't only be an internal process. This needs to be transparent with open sharing as to what the process is and the considerations for change there as well. So in the review, in the systematic proposed changes, will not only be at the board, but we look to make this a very transparent process as to the steps we're taking to remove those barriers from being in place. But I would, if I know Sean had to drop off due to another commitment, but if Sylvie and Ole, if you're available as well, I would welcome any thoughts you have, and then any additional comments from our panelists as well.
Yeah, I would say a very good way is just to get engaged. On an annual basis, members are asked for helping as volunteers on various committees. So I would say that is a very good way to get engaged, to learn more about the society. Yeah, that is what I'd basically like to say. Yeah, thank you.
I just would add that we have an obligation, and I say this knowing full well that, you know, at our home institutions, I'm guessing every one of us can say, okay, we still don't do very well in recruiting diverse pools for faculty. We don't do a good job, but we, you know, in theory, we're supposed to be doing a better job than we did previously, and we do training, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, it comes down to us. And at the beginning, I can tell people get involved, but then the next step up, you're not going to get diversity on boards, on whatever, if people aren't candidates. And then the candidates, we have to enable the candidates to have to gain profile, so that the members know who they are when it gets to voting and are supportive. And so, but it does start with us making sure that we have a diverse candidate pool, that for everything that where we want to see diversity, whether it's in the awards, whether it's whatever, we need to, if the awardees aren't diversified and the award, you know, the pool of candidates for awardees aren't diversified, that's about the nomination process. It's not about the talent. So I think that, you know, we have opportunities over and over again to revisit the processes and procedures and hold ourselves to the standard of making sure we follow through, not just saying, oh yeah, we consider diversity, when we didn't really do it. I'm going to pass it off to Samira or Kara.
And then yeah, I'll be brief. I'm just going to talk from personal experience. When I first got involved with the society, it was not easy for me to be included, not at all. So my experience was, you know, but what helped is to be included in the division. So I would encourage everybody to be involved in the division business meetings and really trying to integrate that way. But I also put it on the division leaders and the community leaders to be also inclusive and encourage graduate students. When I was division chair, I mean, that's one of the things I try to encourage graduate students, graduates, and undergraduate, because they are the pipeline for increasing diversity in our society. So, but involvement in the business meetings and the division, I force my students to come to the business meetings and they hate it, but I'm like, this is your gateway to be involved in leadership and in awards and everything. Kara, up to you.
Let me just add quickly, we need to make those business meetings fun.
We need more money for the food functions.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to chime in, and I think that this is a great moment for also increasing the transparency around like the structure of the different divisions and around the leadership, because for myself and also for this newer group that I'm the co-chair of, the LGBTQ+ scientists and allies, one of the big challenges is figuring out, okay, we want to have an event, but who do we ask? And how much money is available? Do we even dare ask for all of that, or do we just ask for some of it? And so it's actually been one of the biggest helps is one-on-one conversations that when older members or people who have been in the field for a longer time have actually offered us advice on who to talk to, basically which levers to pull, because it's often kind of a big gray cloud, and to hear just get engaged, that can be really intimidating. And it can be, it's just is a big gray cloud. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity for clearer communication about how do you get nominated to different positions and what that process even looks like. And for our experience in particular, like the LGBTQ+ scientists and allies, we were really heartened by the support that we got to put on a special session and about the support for getting a table in the exhibit hall. And it was like pleasantly surprising. But it took a lot of work on our part and a lot of time, especially by a few key members of our group. They've dedicated a ton of time to making those events happen and making our group happen itself. And so it has to come from both sides. And so that's what I think a big opportunity is for increasing communication and of how things are structured and where to get involved and where to start out.
And Carol, what you're mentioning, actually, it was part of the discussions in a different way within the strategic planning as well at the board level, but also coming from members in the member town hall events that we had to solicit input around professional development. And this is not only within the society, so it's from a broader perspective as well. And internally, if we're looking there, just to your exact point, part of that leadership development process that we're looking at, and this would be lifelong from K-12 to end of career at least, thinking about ways, and especially in the early stages, providing systematic trainings on how to get engaged. What are the levers to pull? What are the processes we have in place? I personally, as a member, especially early on, felt it was incredibly difficult to get engaged. And I know there were some comments in the question box about don't put this on individuals. I couldn't agree more. When especially when you're new in the societies or have been here for even 7-10 years, when you're looking when you're interested, have the passion and the want to get engaged, it needs to be fully transparent. It needs to be very easy for you to understand where to go. And we haven't done a good job at that. And we certainly can do better.
Go ahead. Just really quick to add on to that, I think that's also when you talk about translating what we're talking about here to our home institutions and where we work on a daily basis, that's also like, think about who you're working with and the undergraduates and the graduate students that you're talking to. And I work with undergraduate interns and workers in my lab, and I was a liberal arts major when I was an undergrad, and making the transition to research science has been a big leap. And I've had to learn a lot about how labs are organized and departments are organized, because it's very different. And so I'd say, like, when you're going back to your own home institutions, keep that in mind when you're talking to people, that they might not just inherently know how things are organized and who controls what and how structures of leadership come around.
Thank you, and thank you, Kara. Thank you to our panelists, and really the big thank you to everyone who participated across the webinar, or across the town hall, to provide questions, provide comments. It's your input and your leadership stepping up to be here and participate today that really drives the change, along with the accountability that we need to hold across all leaders in the societies going forward. In follow-up, what you'll see is not only the posting of this town hall, this is being recorded, so that'll be posted. We'll also continue the conversations in our discussion boards. We'll work to address all the questions that were submitted. So I know there were a number of questions that were submitted that we did not have the time to get to today. And you'll see additional town halls being put together and presented, so to open up these conversations more. You'll see the action plans coming out. Really, some of these action plans are going to be coming out before the end of the month, or before the end of July, I should say, in conjunction with the strategic plans. You'll see activity in social media. So I would welcome your input with it, whatever means is easiest for you to get engaged with us. Reach out to headquarters staff. We're certainly going to reach out as best we can to gather your input. So with that, I would say thank you again. Thank you to the panelists, and big thank you for everyone who participated here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.